It scared her and she knew I was going to do it. We're about to begin this meeting of June, what is it, 14th of 2022. Before we do, I'm going to stand for a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Anyone who'd like to join me, please feel free to do so. Join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, I got the short seat again.
Mine up too.
I got the short seat. I don't know what happened.
Mine was too high.
Somebody moving the chairs around.
Yeah,
All right, first item on the agenda is roll call. Mr. Johnson, you have the roll, I'm sure.
Yes, sir.
Next item on the agenda is adoption of the regular agenda. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Wise. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We have an agenda. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding Director of Schools employment contract. I have some statements here to talk about. Getting into that, I've laid a copy of it in front of you, so you have a copy of it there. Of course, as you know, as all of you may know, if you don't, I'm fixing to tell you that, of course, Dr. Phillips is not here tonight because he had the emergency appendectomy over the weekend. He is recovering from that. Talked to him a little while ago. He's talking and so seems to be doing well, so we're glad of that. We want to make sure that we all direct our prayers towards him and his healing. And as you know, over the last few days and weeks and so, he and I have been discussing his contract, and we came to the conclusion that he would like to redo the contract to actually shorten it from a 4-year contract down to a 2-year contract. The first year, ending June 30th of 2023, he will still be in his present position as Director of Schools. The second year, ending June 30th of 2024, will be in a consulting role to the board and the new director. This is important to the board and the new director for several reasons, some of which are, I've got a few things here that just come to mind right off the bat, but I remember when we hired Dr. Phillips, he had no help. We tried to hire some help and we got a lot of flack from that, and it was a mess. And so the rarity of a school system this size, losing a director with that many projects going on, could certainly use some direction and some consultation coming up to keep us in line with those things. So the rarity of it is good for the board to have him on as a consultant for that next year. The wealth of the knowledge that can be transferred to the new director is priceless. 12, 13 years. By the time he gets there, it'll be well over 13 years of knowledge of how this place runs, what machine runs it, and who does what, and we could go on down the list for a lot of things. But the wealth of knowledge that can be transferred to the new director, I'm sure not only the new director would be thankful to have it, but I think it would be great for the board to have that smooth transition as well. The new director will need help. There was very little help when we hired Dr. Phillips, and it took quite a while to get up to speed and understand how the district had been run and how it needed to be run. And we, the board, will need help. He's led us through a lot of things. We've got lists and lists and lists of things that he's led us through over the years, and that's just a world of knowledge that could help us as board members as well. We'll need help on the ongoing projects, and the good thing about it is it's only a 1-year expense. Let's see. I've got several things here I want to talk about before we move on. Dr. Phillips has always spanked my hands when I wanted to make it about him, because he's not the kind of guy that wants to have things about him, but he's not here tonight. And so I want to just kind of go over a list of accomplishments that this man has brought to us and what we should be thankful for with him. Sumner County Schools accomplishments under Dr. Phillips' time as director include, under academics, 63 reward schools. 2017 to Tennessee Department of Education Exemplary School District. 11 STEM schools, #1 in Tennessee. 30 career technical education pathways, #1 in Tennessee. Graduation rate increased from 89% in 2011 to 95.7% in 2021. 194 AP scholars in 2021. Addition of the AP capstone diploma at 4 high schools. 2 blue ribbon schools. Reading 360 district, foundational literacy, K through 3 in each middle school. Creation of Middle College, Sumner County and Middle College Technical High Schools. Building and facilities, $235 million on new school construction and renovation of 27 existing schools. Capital given to schools, elimination of 70 portables used as classrooms. School security and student wellness. Student resource officers funded for each school. Security renovations to school entrances. A registered nurse in each school. An AED in each building. Under leadership development, 2020 Tennessee School Board Association School Board of the Year. 2 Tennessee Department of Education Supervisors of the Year. Middle Tennessee Grand Division Principal of the Year. Under financial management, balanced budget for the past 13 years with a reserve fund of $3.5 million for fiscal stability. Increased pay for all district employees by providing raises every year over the past 10 years. Established and managed insurance trust to provide benefits and health insurance for all district employees. During COVID, 92% in-person classes for K through 5 students. 87% in-person classes for 6 through 12 students. Purchase school supplies for all K through 8 students. That's just one page. And we could go on and on and on. The knowledge and the consultation that we could get from this man is priceless. And so for that year, I think it's very, very great that he would offer that. And I think it would be wise for us to accept it. I do want to move now to our board attorney, Mr. Presnell. If you would, he will explain the changes to the contract. And then after that, we'll talk about a motion.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good evening, everyone. So you have a copy of the draft contract for your consideration in front of you. It will look familiar to you. It is the same contract that this board approved last year with Dr. Phillips for a 4-year term. There are, I guess, one primary change, 2 sort of secondary changes that I want to bring to your specific attention. So paragraph 1A, there on the first page, does what the chairman said it would do, and that it reduces the contract term from a 4-year contract down to a 2-year contract that would begin July 1, 2022 and conclude on June 30, 2024. That first year of what we have designated as the employment term would be Dr. Phillips continuing to serve in his current role as director of schools in all facets, as he's done the last several years. Then beginning July 1, 2023 through June 30, 2024, Dr. Phillips would serve the board and the new director of schools and others in this district in an advisory, consulting, transition type role where he would be available to the board, available to the new director of schools for consultation on really any subject within his scope of knowledge about the school district. And the chairman mentioned some, whether it's construction projects or assistance with principal or school matters. He will be there full time for that availability. Now, a couple things about 1A is that he would be paid both years at the same salary, and we reference that salary in paragraph 4, which is $210,172. That is a $4,000 increase from the prior contract, and that is due, as you can see in paragraph 4, that there was an increase approved by the board for employees across the board, and so therefore that affected his contract. So we went ahead and built that into paragraph 4, but that would be the salary for both years. Of course, Dr. Phillips would be here full-time during that first year. He's available full-time that second year. May do some of the work remotely, could do some of it on location. It really, at that point, will depend on what projects he's asked to consult on, what advice he's asked to give. And so just so you know, he may obtain employment elsewhere if he so chooses during that time period, but certainly would be on call and available in that advisory and consulting capacity. So that's a good summary, if you will, of paragraph 1A. I mentioned paragraph 4, the change there from the prior contract is just that $4,000 difference. And then if you will turn to the addendum, which is the third page. I took the opportunity as we were drafting those two changes to update the benefits portion of this contract. And so the second bullet point deals with medical / dental insurance. The prior contract read, that same bullet point read that once Dr. Phillips attains a service of 10 years to the board, then he is eligible to participate in the health insurance program at his discretion during any open enrollment period. So now that we are where we are in 2022, he has attained those 10 years. And so I just change the language to make that an affirmative statement that since he has the parties, you can see there, recognize and agree that the employee has been employed as a director of schools for 10 years or more, and therefore, at his discretion, he may purchase insurance through that program. So again, I just flipped that language to make it that he has achieved that 10 years of service. So those are the material items, changes that we made from the prior contract approved by this board. And hopefully I've explained them well, but I'm happy to entertain any questions from you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. President. With that, I'll entertain a motion to accept this contract that's, I didn't even get the motion. Motion made by Mr. Wise, second by Ms. Hayes and Ms. Bachman, I think 2 or 3 others. So, well, is there any discussion now? We could ask Mr. President questions now under discussion. Is there any discussion? Mr. Duncan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to address the consulting year. To maintain our workforce, the morale, the stability of this school district, I think it's very important that we consider that second year. A lot of people think the cost is too high, but honestly, we need to give our staff at the central office, as well as throughout the system, the stability that we've had over the last 10 years. We don't need staff fleeing because we have a new director. That second year, to me, buys us that insurance policy that we were able to keep our good staff that we have in this school district. Like the chairman has said, that knowledge and experience is invaluable to us. So I just want to say those words before we go to a vote and let you know that I'm in full support of the consulting year. It makes sense for a smooth transition. We've got a wonderful school district that has been pulled to the top over the last decade. It's been a fight. I've only been here for 1 term to see that, but it's been a fight, and we need to continue to give our staff everything they need to do their job properly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Ms. Hawkins?
I think it should be noted that the amount of Dr. Phillips' salary is what he has earned over this 10-year period, and that a starting director would not be starting at that level. Is that right, or do we know?
We don't know.
Okay. And also, do we know how this additional overlap will be funded?
Ms. Brown?
So that funding would be put into next year's budget. So this year it would be the same. We would address that additional funding in next year's budget.
Okay. I do want to say that Dr. Phillips has been an amazing captain of this ship, and he has kept us off the rocks during storms. He has kept the morale, I think, of our staff. Just hearing the words number one in the state of Tennessee just, I think, says it all. And I'm in full support of this new contract.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Any further discussion? Ms. Andrew?
Yeah, I just want to say, we'll all sit here and say we're in support of this. But if we're honest, we're not.
True.
We're not. Many of us in this room have watched this district, as Ms. Hawkins says, rise to the top. And it was not a quick rise. It was not an easy rise. When Dr. Phillips came, I think back to when I remember him coming. My daughter, who will be a senior, was in 2nd grade. That year, I was part of the PTO, and we looked at fundraising, and when we raised number one, we were looking at registration. So you go to registration, and you had a school fee that you had to pay because we didn't actually fund our school, so every parent paid a school fee per student. They then had a laundry list of school supplies that included colored copy paper and regular copy paper and Post-it notes for the teacher. Then we would do school-wide fundraising for more copy paper, and the teachers were, restricted on how many copies they could have, and that was the reality of what our school system was. And we were lucky to have a director that came in and said, our kids deserve better. And he doesn't have a kid in our school system. So when he said our kids deserve better, he was talking about our kids. He was talking about my kids. What my kids have since been able to have. Because hard decisions were made. Because people in this room recognized that public education in Sumner County, we had great people. We still have great people. It was time to fund those. So in addition to all the things that Mr. Brewer has read, we also don't have school fees. We raised the amount that we were paying per pupil so that our teachers in our buildings had the supplies they needed. Every building did. It didn't matter if you raised $100,000 a year in your PTO or raised $500. Your students had what they needed to learn. And technology, when he came in, was $20,000 for our entire district. And at that time, we had 40-something schools. Do the math. We have 30,000 students. We are providing technology to our students so that they can thrive, so that they can compete for the jobs that their peers are also competing for. We're attracting the best of the best teachers. We've established leadership programs so that when our principals or people retire, we have people that are ready to step into their shoes and to lead well. And all of that comes from the vision of Dr. Phillips. I also want to say a huge, huge, huge thank you to his wife, Amy. we all know, we've heard time and time again. Well, he's from Mississippi. He is. He lives in Gallatin. For a decade, his family has made the decision to allow him to live in a different state, again, for our kids. His wife made a sacrifice of time with her husband for our kids. Amy, if you're watching, thank you. We're in a debt of gratitude for you. So all that to say is, the truth is, none of us want to be in favor of this contract. But because we respect Dr. Phillips, and because we respect his wishes, and because of the love that he has for Sumner County, I will vote in favor of it.
All right, thank you, Ms. Andrews. Anybody else? Mr. Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's without a doubt that if it hadn't been for his foresight, that when COVID hit, we would have lost a lot of teachers, a lot of staff, because they would not have necessarily gotten their pay through the whole time. It was his foresight that put our students number one, that put our teachers number one, and put this board as a number one in the state. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. Mr. Gregory.
I know Dr. Phillips and the school board, we've been hit pretty hard about spending too much money. Dr. Phillips and his staff and the school board have saved this county far more than we've overspent. I know when he first came here, by necessity, he had to go to a 4-day week in the summertime. And I never do get used to that, but at the same time, think of the utilities for the past 10 or 11 years that has saved. We used to have fuel issues. We have not had fuel issues since he's been here. There were 3 of us here on the board who went to TSBA last Friday and sat for 6.5 hours listening about school law. And I will assure you, there was not one item that was discussed by the 2 attorneys that we were not doing correctly. Not one. That made me feel good. I know the fellow sitting next to me, he asked me on 2 or 3 occasions, he'd say, "Do y'all do this?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "I never heard of it." He had the wisdom, as soon as this incident happened in Texas, that every teacher and every parent, I think, Mr. Johnson may know this, did they all receive an email concerning the fact that that was up front in our decision making was safety?
Parents can put it on our social media. Or we send it to us. We send it to teachers through our email and then we put it on social media. Make sure parents.
I heard some comments about it. And we got one too. But he hit that just immediately. And I know in our renovations of schools and building programs, school safety has been a number 1 priority. And that the year that Mr. Wilkerson was talking about, where we were out a lot. Was it 2 years ago? Our test scores were still the tops in the state of Tennessee. So the man has great wisdom, great. He may not want to come back now after all these good things. But I'll be glad to see him back. Thank you.
I'll say one quick thing.
Thank you,
Jen.
Mr. Gregory. Ms. Button?
I'll say one thing. I agree with everything. I made a list of things that had popped through my head late this afternoon, and everything. You guys have covered about all of it. So we all are on the same sheet of music as far as our appreciation for Dr. Phillips. And I remember him saying one time, he was asked the question of what keeps him up at night, and that's to keep our kids safe. And he has done that. Our two main goals here for us is to keep them safe and to educate them. And we have done that very well. And the safety as far as the SROs and the nurses have done major wonders, especially this last month when they saved that child's life at Station Camp High School. So you can't put a price on that. His vision is just like Sarah mentioned. He's a great visionary. He has the ability to be able to see those things and to be able to implement them and put the right people in the right position. And it's made us where we are today. We can't thank him enough. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Button. Mr. Duncan?
Mr. Chairman, item 2 on the employment contract said this takes 2 readings, but there is a clause that where we could waive that. So I'd like to ask the individual that made the motion to waive the second reading, if there's no objection to that.
We have to waive second reading.
All right, motion been made and accepted by the one who made the motion. Okay for the seconds? Okay. All right, so we will waive the second reading on it. Mr. Wise?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's so much that I could say about Doc. Y'all can call him Dale if you want to. I'll call him Doc. Back, I guess, early part of 2011, that was the year, right? 2011. They get by you. They go quicker. The more birthdays you have, the quicker the years go by. And some of you may have heard this story, but when we got our packets from the candidates for director of schools, one sunny Sunday afternoon, my wife and I were sitting out on the front porch in rocking chairs like old folks do, and we started looking at those packets of each candidate. And I'd look at one and go through it and hand it over to her, and she'd look at it and go through it, and we got through all of them. And she said, well, which one's your favorite? And I picked one of them up and I said, this one right here, but he doesn't have a chance. Mr. Brewer will remember the board that we had at that time, they said, when we talked to the search firm, they said, we want somebody that is former military or former business, correct? Not an educator. Dale Phillips wasn't military. Dale Phillips wasn't business, and I didn't think he had a chance. Well, he made the first interview process, and then we narrowed it down, and he made the last interview process, and he was sitting right down there in that chair, and I got concerned about him. I was afraid he's going to stand up, and we could see that he'd done wore out the seat of his britches because he would not be still in that chair. He told me later, I was ready to go to work, and I believe it now. Well, I was strongly debating between another candidate and Doc. And the way we voted, we went into the conference room one at a time, starting over there, I think, and went in there one at a time and voted. Is that the way we did it, Andy? You remember?
I think so.
I think it is. So Andy goes and comes back, and I didn't ask him which way he voted because didn't really care. I got up, I headed to that door, and I just stopped a minute, and this is the truth. I just stopped because I'm really, really debating. I'm really having a hard time between Doc and another candidate. And I just stopped right over here, and I just whispered a little prayer. I really did. And I just asked God to lead me to the right name. And I went in there, and I voted for Dale Phillips, by the way. And I'm so glad I did. And I'm going to tell you something. He's been called a visionary. He's been called a leader. I'm going to tell you something else that Dale Phillips is. He's a fighter. Dale Phillips is a fighter. He didn't have a child in our school system. Not a child. He didn't have a niece, he didn't have a nephew, he didn't have a grandchild. He didn't have a wife teaching. He didn't have any connection other than he was selected as director of schools. But I'm going to tell you something. That guy fought for my grandchildren. He fought for my son, because my son's a teacher. He fought for your grandchildren. He fought for yours. He fought for yours. Dale Phillips is a fighter. And he's in Mississippi right now fighting, getting over surgery. I remember several years ago, he had to request that we, as a board, make a decision to delay opening schools. Because he knew that we could open schools on time, but he knew that we couldn't start back after Christmas break because we wouldn't have any money. He fought to get that budget passed. He came up with a plan. We delayed opening schools, I don't know, a week and a half, and we caught hail. Pardon me, but that's what we caught because we delayed opening schools. But it worked. But that fight and I'll tell you what he did with all of his fighting. You know, I've been in Sumner County 40 years plus. Used to, schools were just another thing. Just another thing. You know, you went to, if you were a Hendersonville fan, you went to their ball games and basketball games and football games and all their things. If you were a Portland fan, you might have gone to one of their football games, but you probably, I won't say it. Probably chose to stay at home. I lost track. He made school in Sumner County important. He put it on the minds of people. He put it on the minds of people who have not gone to school in Sumner County, who has no one in school in Sumner County. I've had people tell me, but my kids are out of school. Excuse me, doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. You may hire that senior in high school. Doc is a fighter. And because he's a fighter, he has led this school system to the top of the mountain. And I'm telling you, I'm all for keeping that experience. I'm telling you, experience is the best teacher. He's got, in our county, he's got 10 plus years of experience of leading the school system. I want him to share it with the next one. And I'm willing to pay him to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, I know it's funny. We're in the middle of campaign season, and one of the things you always hear from candidates, especially incumbents or their challengers, are you better now than you were before, 2 years, 4 years, whatever that period of time is. And Ms. Andrews covered a lot of where we were. And there are a couple of us that were on the board during that time period when we hired Dr. Phillips, and then we fought in 2012. And that fight really left a legacy of awareness for parents within this community of what our needs really were. And it really helped to build some community within our school district. But you know, when I look at where we are now versus where we were then, I think you can easily say, when you look at what a director of schools is responsible for, our facilities are better than they were. Our staff is better than it was, and they're better paid. And most importantly, at the end of the day, our students are performing better than they were, because that's what our goal is. We talk about caring for our students, and he talks about these kids being the most important thing, and we all have kids, and we want what's best for them. But the opportunities they have now, based on improved testing scores, based on the CTE programs, based on the AP and the honors curriculum that's available, middle colleges, TCAT, all of these things that he's brought into our community. I'll be honest, before Dr. Phillips was here, I had no idea what a middle college was. I would think most everybody in the county, and maybe in the state, very few in the state even knew what that was. And now we have two, one focus on the technical side. And so, you know, there are so many great things that he's done. And one of the things I remember for those of us that were on the board was that transition year was tough. Trying to step in, trying to figure out a budget in a matter of months, trying to figure out who everybody is. And I think there's a lot of value in being able to have someone that you can rely on, that you can go to say, hey, how do we do this? How do you manage this? What's your vision? Share your vision with me. What are the next steps that we can take? And then be able to rely on that person. You see it happen in the business community all the time. And you know, as Mr. Wise was saying, you know, we talked about not wanting or wanting a business person. And we can say Dr. Phillips was not a business person, but he was a business person in laying the vision out for this community and making sure he put the right people in the right positions and making sure that we were able to move this community forward. And because of that, while none of us want to start looking for a replacement, we're not going to have a shortage of qualified candidates, because it's not often that a county like this provides an opportunity for a director of schools. Where we're at, based on where we've been and where we can possibly go. And I appreciate the wisdom that he's brought, the legacy he's going to leave, and the help he's going to give us moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Ms. Hawkins.
I just want to build on what Mr. Gregory said about how Dr. Phillips has helped this county school system save money through his wisdom. And it just occurred to me that our investment in Dr. Phillips staying and consulting with the next director will certainly help this county save money by passing along that wisdom and his excellence in handling our funds and making us prepared for unexpected situations like COVID. We were ready. And we saw counties around us were not, and they were struggling. But because of Dr. Phillips' wisdom with our funds and his foresight and his vision, we were prepared. And so for that reason, I feel like an investment in keeping him that extra year will actually benefit us financially, not to mention just having him help this transition to be smooth. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Ms. Hayes.
Well, I know everything has been said, and I'm trying to do this without getting choked up. Transitions can make or break corporations, companies. If that is not navigated well, it doesn't turn out good. As a consultant, that year of transition is You can't put a price tag on that. It's so valuable. I'm just grateful that Dr. Phillips is willing to do that for that second year. Everybody has said just about everything that can be said. We're blessed in this county to have Dr. Phillips as the director of schools. I know that there was just divine orchestration in bringing him here. Yes, there was a board that voted for him. He put his name in the hat and applied. I'm grateful for the board that voted for him here. As a former educator and still plugged in and involved in the community, I was knowing what was going on and was concerned. The pushback with even him hired, that transition was not pretty, was not smooth. He did not get the support at all. Stay connected to what's going on. The cheerleader in me was jumping up and down when he drew the line in the sand and said, no, we can't run school. We haven't got the funds. I just went, yes, this man's strength of character. Was that a hard thing to do? But it was the reality. And I know that was difficult. The haters definitely came out. People were, but it educated Sumner Countyans on what was happening in the school system. And that's tied with the county commission, our funding body. I just appreciate his strength of character, his leadership. I know it had to be extremely exhausting. I believe God purposed that he would be here as our director of schools. During that time, as I'm reading, I'm watching, I'm keeping up with what's going on, I'm attending, God is burning my heart to run for school board. And I'm like, oh, no, 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 not me. You must mean somebody else. But that was that 2014 year that some of us stepped on the board in 2014. My line is, I was minding my own business and God called me to run for school board. And I'm so grateful he did. Didn't have to be doing this. I went in for a meeting with Dr. Phillips. If you've got time on your schedule, I'd like to meet you. I'd never met Dr. Phillips. I walked out of that meeting and I asked him the question, what keeps you up at night? He said, it's the safety of our kiddos. He's just a hard-working man. He puts everything he has into the work of school. And it's a family business, school, education. I'm going to support this. As it's been stated, I hate we're even addressing this right now. But it is what it is, and I will support this new agreement. But we are blessed. We are blessed with Dr. Dale Phillips.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes. Seeing no further, I will say this.
Mr. Brewer, could I say a word? Okay. I'm going to try to make it through this. I was thinking about Ted today because Ted came right after he pulled out the names of the packet that he liked. He came to White House. We used to eat lunch and all sit around the lunch table after, and coaches and cafeteria workers and everybody. And Ted came and told us about how wonderful he thought Dale Phillips was going to be for the school system. And, you know, it's Sumner County. Everybody's a little bit circumspect about somebody that's not from here. And we've been so used to a rotation. I don't think we even had it in our vision to conceive that there could be somebody come from outside that brought ideas that were very different to Sumner County. And Dale brought that. I was thinking that my entire school leadership career has been under Dale's leadership and guidance. And you know, a lot of people talk about vision. And vision is powerful, but what differentiates Dale from anybody else I've ever worked with is once the vision is cast, the strength of character, as Ms. Hayes said, to take the journey is where greatness is born. You have to journey through the crucible to get to the other side to enjoy the fruit of that. And Dale has journeyed us through many valleys where he's led us, and he's borne the brunt of more than anybody can imagine, because he has a deep love for our kids and for each of us. You know, there's so many things, like he gets mad at me when I praise him, but he deserves so much more praise than he gets for the million things that he does. You know, huge vision is good, but one of the things I remember is something that nobody even thinks about is, you know, he'd been watching how many of our classified employees, or just really employees in general, lives were destroyed by getting cancer or having a negative health condition. And he figured out a way, he and Amanda working together figured out a way to provide long-term disability for all of our employees, because a lot of people don't carry long-term disability because it adds an extra $25 or $30 deduction from your paycheck, and nobody thinks they need it until they need it. And he looked at that. Nobody sees that side of his compassion for our people. I watched him last week laughing because if you know Dale, I hope he's not listening to this part, but this will be good. If you know Dale, he's somewhat tight. And Wade took him for $8 last week at the cafe. He got 2 cookies and a smoothie and a couple of other things. And you know, I was thinking, you know, he was just laughing. And he took Wade on a tour of the entire central office. And you know, it was good. But that's the vision and the love on the grand scale and on the small scale. When my dad died in 2015, my first year as a principal, he was one of the first people that called me. He said, take whatever time you need. If you need me, I'm here. Whatever you need, I'm here. Same thing when my mom died. This year, when my daughter was a first-year teacher at Knox Dawes, first week of school, he made a trip to her room and just sat around and talked. And Amanda said, I'm not going to lie, it's a little intimidating when the director of school is walking in your classroom. But he stopped just to talk to her. Every time he went to White House High School, he'd go down to talk to my wife about her art classroom. Not just my family, but he did it with thousands and thousands of our people and remembers almost every one of those interactions. And, you know, if you look at what he's done, I've had the privilege with my work on the county commission to see the vision on the grandest scale, where when you sit around and you say you want to build a Liberty Creek, that didn't happen in 2019, that happened in 2015. You know, the move from $20,000 in technology to where we are today didn't happen in 2019, it happened in 2011. I can remember sitting around making plans for what we could do on the commission side to properly allocate the money that the schools needed. And people don't like, I knew nothing when I got elected to the county commission about what a penny was or what a penny on the tax rate was. And I remember sitting around meetings and Dr. Phillips saying, well, if we're going to do this, you know, if you want an SRO in every building, it's going to cost this number of pennies. That's what you've got to do. And he's never wrong. It's uncanny how visionary he is on that stuff. But I just want people to know that beyond the grand vision, and I've had the privilege of working with a lot of great leaders over my life, you know, Dale is at the very top. But I hope that people can step back and look over the next year and see the deep love of Sumner County, whether it's serving as the, you know, president of the Chamber of the United Way Board, working on the hospital board, being in Rotary, going to 1 million different fundraisers and always supporting everybody that he could that wanted to make a difference in the life of Sumner County. And, you know, and this is not a small thing. He's the first director that I remember that went to a whole bunch of graduations. Well, I don't remember a director ever at a White House High School graduation, and he was at every one. You know, I just, like, I'll keep rambling, but I hope that, you know, the greatest thing I can say about Dale is he's a friend. And my love for him and for this county I hope exemplifies in a small way what he's given to each of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Langford. Seeing nobody else, I would like to say that in my time on the school board, what I'm most proud of is bringing Dr. Dale Phillips to Sumner County. Under his leadership and direction, our schools, our district has improved in every level and become one of the leading districts in the state of Tennessee. And I could go on and on and on. But I'm not going to, because we've got another year with him. And we've got another 2 years with him, actually, but another year as director of schools. And so he can't do anything to us, so we can praise him now if we want to when he's around. And so I think I'm going to reserve mine for the next 12, 14, 15 months, whatever it comes to. With that, I will say all in favor, say aye.
Mr. Brewer,
All opposed?
I just want to make one comment. In paragraph 2 of the contract, we reference board policy CEA. That has been renumbered to 5.801, so I will make that change.
Okay. Right.
Otherwise, you were voting on the correct contract.
Okay.
Thank you.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Mr. Daniels.
Oh, I was going to ask just for a point of clarity on the vote. I didn't know if this one that had to be roll call versus voice. I wasn't sure what the state law was. Sometimes we have to vote roll call versus voice. I just want to make sure we do it right.
I would suggest doing a roll call.
All right, let's
just
do a roll
just
call.
in case.
All right. A roll call vote. Mr. Johnson.
All right. Ms. Hayes. Ms. Bachman.
Yes.
Ms. Andrews.
Yes.
Mr. Duncan.
Yes.
Ms. Hawkins.
Yes.
Mr. Daniels.
Yes.
Mr. Wise.
Yes.
Mr. Gregory. Mr. Wilkerson.
Yes.
Chairman Brewer.
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously.
All right. Thank you very much. All right. Next item on the agenda is adoption of the consent agenda. Is there a motion? Motion. Motion approved by Ms. Hayes, second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding the minutes of the May 17th regular meeting. Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by? Mr. Daniels said it first before you got Jan up. Second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding the minutes of the May 26th special call meeting. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Mr. Wise, second by Ms. Hawkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, no delegations, hearing delegations, no matters, and no executive session. That's always good. Report from the director. We'll let him report when he gets back. Under new business, discussion and interaction regarding the revision to policy 4.600, grading system upon first reading. So moved by Ms. Andrews, second by Ms. Bachman. Any discussion?
Do we need to waive that so that, okay, we do need to waive second reading so that we can be compliant, so that our high schools can get that updated with their materials before registration.
A motion has been made to not only approve, but to waive second reading. Are you okay with the second? Our second is okay with that. Any discussion? Mr. Duncan?
I usually catch on pretty quick, but this one confused me because we're changing the high school grading scale to a 10-point scale for A through F, but yet we're leaving the middle school and elementary school. So what's different that we need to have a different grading scale at high school versus the other two levels that we outlined?
State law. There was Mr. Duncan. There was a law passed that goes into effect July 1.
That's all you have to say,
That
Mr.
changed high school. Now, what they did do, middle school and elementary will change also, but they passed by law. They changed it for high school, and they sent to the State Board of Education elementary and middle for them to work out what the new state grading scale will look like for elementary and middle. It's not on any upcoming agenda at the state board that I can see. My guess is they'll do it about August 5th. But as soon as we get an updated elementary and middle school, because I agree that it would be nice to move all those things at once.
I just don't understand the way that we're looking at one version versus the three, but you've answered my question. It's the same group of people that want to censor our books in school. I want to take the opportunity to slam the state as much as possible because they've done some boneheaded moves in the last session. Damn it.
Thank you, Mr. Duncan. Ms. Andrews.
Well, that's fun to follow. So, one question that that I've been asked, I feel like I know the answer, but I just want to have it on public record, is with this new grading scale in the high school level, they're not bonus points, but the extra points that are awarded, the rigor points that are added to those advanced classes. So, for instance, an A is now going to be a 90 to 100. If you're in an honors course, you could technically make an 87. You'll still get your 3 points to get your 90 for it to be an A.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that is, I mean, Ms. Andrews, I will say that that part is governed by the State Board of Education through the uniform grading policy. So it could conceivably change. You know, I know there's been a little bit of pushback that if you take an AP class, that would be an 85 to get to an A. My guess is what happens with all grading scales is the way you do grades adjust based on where the number is. So if you think it's an A minus work, it's going to come in around a 90 instead of a 93. But it does make us, I think, Mr. Duncan, the positive aspect, I think, of the move was looking at kids going, especially students going out of state. Most other states have a 10-point grading scale, and it kind of aligns ours with what we see. So, you know, you had kids that made a 91 or 92, they got a B that would have made an A on a different scale. So I think that was the explanation.
Thank you, Ms. Langford. Ms.
Yeah, I'll
Andrews.
just continue on that. Listening to the discussion from the state, and I actually reached out to the bill sponsor on this and asked regarding it. I do believe that it came, if I'm correct, from like a border county, possibly Clarksville, but specifically with the military families, where you have so many transplants coming in and that are on the 10-point scale, that when we were on the 7-point scale, our GPAs would be then lower. Students getting the same grades, so when their GPAs were higher, they were getting more scholarship dollars and so forth. So this is a way to benefit our students as far as it's really post high school that these grades are being adjusted for. But I know from just discussions with parents that because of that adjustment, they were concerned that the rigor points would be taken away. And as of right now, they are still within the scope of it. We'll just have to wait and see what the state does.
I really don't think that they will make an adjustment on that because that's how you differentiate. The state has not gotten into weighting GPAs as a policy, so the way that they've worked around that is by adding points, the rigor points to the class, and so I would really be stunned if they changed that.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Daniels.
Yeah, Mr. Langford, as a former graduate of Gallatin High School, will they go back and adjust my grades? I mean, I'm think I'm missing out on some honor rolls here that I'd like to add to my resume.
Mr. Daniels, there's a policy after 20 years of graduating. It's sort of like the stories of what we did on the football field and stuff. Like you can pretty much inflate your GPA to whatever you want it to be, awesome. And it's all fair game.
Straight A student.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion and interaction regarding a revision to policy 6.300 student disciplinary procedures up on first reading. Is there a motion? Motion approved by Mr. Daniels, second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Ms. Andrews.
You know I've got questions. You just look. Okay, couple of things that I was looking at this policy that I just want to ask. Do we maybe want to add a little bit of language? So, for instance, under a level 1, it's inappropriate items brought to school. Should we add the language on that, like that says non-harmful? And I don't know if we're aligning with like state law on that, because obviously different people's opinions of inappropriate. Where like for a weapon is inappropriate, but that's harmful, and that would go under a different. I believe this is probably talking about something that's distracting within the classroom is a level 1. So I don't know if that language is on there, if we need to add that under level 2, where it has harassment, intimidation. I know people will most likely ask, should there also be specifically labeled bullying within that? And then one more was, where was it? There was a tardiness one on another, and I didn't know if it needed to add excessive, just because it was a different level. I don't know where that one went.
Ms. Brown.
I could speak to that, yes. Melanie Webster and I reviewed this. Melanie did the hard work and I helped with the fine tuning. And so on the first one, let me take them one at a time. You were talking about harmful or inappropriate items. So we chose that phrasing specifically because it depends. You know, what a kindergartner brings that's inappropriate and what a high school student brings is inappropriate. There's such a broad range. And yes, it could be harmful. It could be just something distracting. A noisy dinosaur toy is not appropriate for a kindergartner to bring, whereas I can't even imagine. I can imagine, but I can't really state what would be not harmful but inappropriate for a high school student to bring. Right. It could be any number of things, but that does give us a little bit, honestly, a little bit more leeway. That language does, because threatening items or threatening actions are covered differently. Does that make sense on that one? And then the next one was harassment and intimidation. Bullying can be harassment and intimidation. And so, but bullying is not always harassment and intimidation, and bullying is not always a level 2 behavior. Because it can be corrected with coaching, conversation, things like that. And so it doesn't always warrant the discipline that harassment or intimidation intentionally would warrant. And then you said tardiness. You're right. Excessive tardiness may need to be. I see that. School or class tardiness. You're right. Excessive probably is a good add there. Yeah. And just in general, we're correcting some redundant language, some outdated language, and then adding some interventions that are more proactive for the student. You see, we've talked about our first offender class before and some smoking cessation things we've spoken about previously. This adds those as an option for principals to use. We've also put in the expectation that a student improvement plan be put in place before a student moves to more involved exclusionary discipline, like a disciplinary hearing or something like that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brown. Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, unfinished business, discussion and interaction regarding amendments to the general purpose budget. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Move to approve by Mr. Duncan, second by Mr. Daniels. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda, discussion and interaction regarding amendments to the federal budget. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Ms. Bachman. Second by Mr. Gregory. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of study session items. We don't have a study session coming up, do we? Or do we?
We do not. Our next study session is August 9th, but here is actually a good time to probably talk about our July meeting while we're talking about all this. So as everyone will recall, we have a charter school application, and that charter school application by procedure can appeal the board's previous decision. They have done that. They've resubmitted. And when you look at the calendar based on the resubmittal date, if we hold our July meeting at the current time, we will be on the, depending on how you count it, the 29th or 30th day. And so we think that's a little bit tight. And so if the board is willing, we would like to move that meeting to July 12th.
And I think we have a vote on that. Is there a motion to move the July meeting to July 12th. So moved by Ms. Hayes, second by Ms. Bachman. Any discussion on that, Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I'll just say I will be out of town on that day. I can probably attend virtually. I think it's convention or something going on. I just know I'm out of town that day. So,
Mr. Daniels, any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. All opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. We moved it to July, what you said? 12th. Okay.
What is our date for the next meeting?
July 12th.
July 12th?
July 12th. So that's all just study session items. They'll come up as they come up. Communication from the board. Ms. Hayes, would you like to start tonight?
Say, the summer school, my grandchildren go to summer school, all four of them. One in middle and one at Danny Mary, and they are loving it. So I want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart, and I think all the other kids I think are enjoying summer school. So I want to thank everyone that went to the meeting last night to address the commission. I think it was amazing. And Andrew, your ladies were wonderful. You did a great job. So glad for that. I just have one small item. Since Dr. Phillips is kind of under the weather, I was going to ask if you all would like for me to send him a little something to remember, to let him know that we're thinking of him, and use the same shop that we use for Amy's parents. If you all would like for me to do that, just let me know.
Yeah, do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll,
Okay.
yeah, let us know
Okay.
what we owe you for doing
Okay.
that.
Is there any suggestions that you want? I can talk to the lady over there because I think she knows them pretty well. So.
Yeah.
I think something crimson.
Okay. Okay, I'll get that in the works in the morning. So, and he'll be out probably a week or so.
I think he's planning on being back Monday.
Monday.
Yeah.
Okay, so I need to get on this in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Bachman. Ms. Andrews.
Yeah, I would just like to thank the 17 members of the commission last night that voted in favor of the budgets, and just what that means for our county and for our employees. Thank you to all of our employees, both our school and our general county employees. You know, we can't run without those that are on the ground, and we have got fabulous employees. And so I believe, if I'm not wrong, that there were also raises within the general county budget that were raises for those employees as well. And so we talk a lot about school employees, and obviously that's who we're going to advocate for and all of that, but we have other county employees as well, and they deserve those raises just as much. And so I just want to say thank you to the 17 commissioners who voted in favor of that and continue to support our county. Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Andrews. Mr. Duncan.
I'd like to compliment the teachers on their creativity for these summer classes. My daughter has been able to attend one at Gallatin High School on forensics. And it's amazing what she learned in that very small window of time. She come home and was sharing with me things that she had already learned through her DECA presentation where they went to state. And in those 4 days, she learned an error that she had made in her presentation where they won second in the state. And now she can correct it when they go to nationals because of the 4-day camp that she attended at Gallatin. So I'd like to compliment the teachers that teach those classes because they're passionate about that particular subject. It's amazing what happens when we let people chase their passions through a program like that. So thank you to all those teachers that worked in the summer to share that knowledge that they're so passionate about. Thank you again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Duncan. Ms. Hawkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I attended the Gallatin High School graduation as well as the middle college graduation back in May. And sitting on stage, I had the rare perspective of watching each student walk in front of me to go receive their diploma. And it was mentioned, I think, Ted, you said something about there were people who have been unhappy about spending money on schools because their children have already graduated, or they don't have any kids in school. All of my 3 children graduated from Sumner County schools. Currently do not have any children or grandchildren in Sumner County schools. But watching each face of each student as they walked by, I kind of played a little game in my head. In 10 years, this person may be looking at me while I'm going into surgery. This may be the face that is going to be helping me in some critical situation. Where is that person going to be, and what are they going to be doing in my community to make my community better? No, it's not my child. But an investment in our schools is an investment in our community. It's an investment in our future. It's an investment in the next generation, which is the utmost importance and should be the highest priority. So I would recommend for those who don't have children in our schools, who think that it's not any concern of theirs, to think about the face that they look at when they're getting ready to be put under anesthesia. That was someone who was a graduating senior at one time. And I think that a good school system makes for a good community, and it benefits everyone. I also want to wish Dr. Phillips a speedy recovery, and for him to know that we are all thinking about him today.
Thank you, Ms. Hawkins. Mr. Daniels?
Yeah, I'm curious what you were thinking when my daughter walked across stage. I like to know what she's going to be in 10 years. She thinks she's still trying to figure that out right now. But
I'm sure it'll creep them out if they
yeah, maybe we won't. We'll edit that part of the video. Maybe I don't think we can, but no. I just echo what some of the previous board members have said. Thank the 17 county commissioners that supported the budget, not just for us but for our county. And also just the summer enrichment programs. It's the second year that we've been doing this, and it's amazing how many parents that I've talked to, or things that I've read from parents about how my kids were dreading going to school because it's summer and it's school. And every single person that I talked to that said that said, my kid came home and they can't wait to go back. They're like, I didn't know school could be fun. And it's not just the fact that the teachers are making it fun, but it's opportunities for them to learn in areas that maybe they've wanted to explore and haven't been able to so far, whether that be the culinary offerings that they have at Gallatin, the forensic programs, the things they're offering at these other schools. And so we talk about all these different things, these different programs and opportunities, the CTEs that are out there now. But this is just another way to introduce kids that are maybe interested in something to maybe really find that passion. And help take that first step in a career that could possibly change their life. I compliment our teachers, the students, and of course our staff for not just being willing to teach the classes, but also for being willing to look for these opportunities and be creative in what course we offer. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Daniels. Mr. White?
Yeah, I too would like to give a shout out to our bus drivers and their fearless leader over there, who showed up en masse last night at the commission meeting, and that fighting spirit of Doc has drifted on down to our employees, and I am grateful for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wise. Mr. Gregory?
One other comment about Dr. Phillips. I don't know how often he told the staff members how much he appreciates you, but he did. He does. He really does. But at the same time, I think all of us know that he wasn't afraid to make a change if it needed to be made. But I have noticed him in meetings, and if I happen to be in the central office, he really does think a lot of the South. And I've heard teachers say when he would visit schools that it brought a whole positive attitude in the building just by his presence. And what better things can you say about somebody than a director of schools being that positive in how many buildings we have? 51. 51. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Mr. Wilkerson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to again say rapid healing for Dr. Phillips, and I too attended a couple of graduations, and I just hope that the nurse that's taking care of me is smarter than me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilkerson. I too want to wish Dr. Phillips a speedy recovery. I believe the Lord's in the healing business, and I think he's going to be fine. He'll be back in here Monday, and you probably won't know anything was ever wrong with him. He's that kind of a person. Got a couple of things on my heart that I'll probably get a lot of flack for, but I'm kind of known for that. It don't bother me. It runs down my back like water off a duck's back when I feel like I'm right, and I feel like I am. We're in election season, and it has gotten so nasty in our election season that people are walking around in the name of the Lord, knocking on people's doors and accusing people up here at this office, at the county commission, of being low down dirty dogs or whatever they want to call them. The word of the Lord says, if you got aught with your brother, go to your brother. How many of those people that are knocking on the doors and calling names to the people that they're running against ever went up there and said, hey, I've got an issue with the way you're thinking. Can we have a cup of coffee and sit down and do that? I guarantee you none of them ever did. But they're walking out there in the name of the Lord wanting to get your vote. So that bothers me. The other thing is, unless you have total proof that someone is packing their pockets or going behind closed doors and making deals, you are bearing false witness against your neighbor in the name of the Lord out there asking for votes. And I wish that it would stop. I'm praying in the name of Jesus that it will stop, that you'll be convicted of what you're doing and run a clean campaign and let's get clean people up here, because the people that you're talking about are real people. They have husbands, they have wives, they have jobs. They're just coming up here trying to do their job. That they are real people. And they have issues just like you have issues. And to call names and to accuse people of things like that to get elected, I hope you don't get elected. If you're going to run in the name of the Lord, you need to act like you're running in the name of the Lord. And with that, we're adjourned. Thank y'all. Have a great evening.
Amen, brother.